Hey y'all, welcome back to Real Stories of Entrepreneurs. Today, Andrea and I decided that we would just do a bonus episode and that you would just get me and Andrea catching you up on how things are going with our businesses and what's happening in our world and kind of a recap of what we've gotten so far from all of the people that we've spoken to on the podcast previously. So, Andrea, how's it going?
It's going good. It's busy. Very, very busy.
That's a plus.
How are things going in your world?
Um, they're going. I mean, I feel like I am definitely on that part of the entrepreneurship journey where I'm like at the bottom of the hill and I'm like, are we going to go back up? Because we've just been dropping for a long time. I'm ready to go back up. I'm at that part of the roller coaster ride. So I'm in the struggle zone. I have decided to go back into production. So I'm working for a builder now with my own community, selling houses again. Originally, I had taken myself out of production, but it makes more sense financially for me to go back into production to make sure that first class is still, or platinum rather, is still holding strong. So it's
That's kind of
new.
exciting, though.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I'm excited. I love selling houses. I love new construction. So I'm going back to what I love doing, which is what got me in the industry in the first place, and which is why we started our own company.
Hmm.
Um, and Adam's still running the day to day of First Class Platinum. I'm just sitting on site selling homes.
And how do you feel about the current market and going back?
Well, I mean, there's all this mass hysteria going on, like, oh, the market's going to crash. Oh, 2008's happening. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Everybody has their own opinion, and all these social media people seem to think that they know all, and they don't. I am very much in tune with lenders and Wall Street and what's going on and what's going to happen and how the feds are viewing things. Um, we're predicting that based on the current Fed hike, that it will probably fall in the fives and stay in the fives. It may creep up a little bit above it, but it'll fall back down and will probably stable back out to where people with excellent credit still can get that high three, low four, but people with not so great credit, they're looking at fives as opposed to where everybody was in the mass hysteria of we were going up to 12 and that was going to be a serious issue because that's a huge sticker shock for anyone. But the biggest thing I'm seeing in the market, which is also kind of why I'm glad I'm back on site, is the inventory. There's not enough
Yeah,
inventory. There's still
I
plenty
was
of buyers.
literally just going to say that is I was wondering if where you are, because in case listeners haven't listened from the beginning, I am located on the Illinois side of St. Louis, so Southern Illinois, and Nichole is located outside of Athens, Georgia? Is that how you would
Yep.
describe it? Yeah.
Athens, Georgia. Mhm.
So I know here, and I know our town is kind of one of those sought after suburbs. But here the inventory is such an issue that you're still having multiple offers coming in on,
Yep.
and it's within a range, right? So like super high end homes aren't quite as hot, but like that middle housing market is really booming here still.
Well, I mean, and that's how it is. I mean, there's a couple markets across the state that never slowed down. So even with the mass hysteria, everybody was like, oh, the housing market slowed, the housing market slowed. Well, I'm in Georgia, and Georgia did not slow. If
Mm.
anything, it has kept a steady pace, if not inclined. Whereas in Texas is kind of the same way. Austin, Texas is extremely sought after. We have the pandemic to thank for how great that got because the governors of our states opened us up and we're like, whatever happens, happens. And luckily that worked out for us. It definitely could have gone the other way. But because of that, we have all these people moving from California and from New York that got stuck in their houses for 2 years. So they don't want to stay there. They're like, no, y'all did this, we're coming to y'all. And so it worked out for us. But the thing is that the pricing has gotten, because of 2021, has gotten so out of control that houses that as a real estate agent I look at that I'm like, that's a $250,000 house all day, every day. And they're trying to sell it for 550,000. And it's like, but people are paying it. And like anybody knows in the real estate market, the market determines the pricing. So when you have people paying that amount of money just to get into a house, it kind of hurts the other people. So it's kind of like you're saying, like the high end homes, you'll get offers on them, like over 500, 600,000, you'll get offers on them. But it's those houses below 300,000 that are kind of unheard of right now in Georgia. So starter homes in Georgia are still looking at like that 350 to $400,000 mark, which anybody who has ever bought a starter home knows that that's not a starter home. Like
Right.
you don't go straight into a $400,000 home with, just getting married and a toddler. Like that's just not feasible for a lot of people. But we will see what happens. But the new construction's definitely helped. The builders have come back out. Everybody thought with the builders backing off that meant the market was going to drop and that they knew something somebody else didn't know. It was more of the construction and getting the stuff for construction, finding stuff for production, labor. I mean, labor dropped significantly. People quit doing trade, which was obviously a situation. But at least here in Georgia, new construction is booming. Like every builder that I know has finally opened up all this, all these different areas throughout the state, which is good news for us because even though the multiple offers aren't like they were in 2021 when it was like 76 offers on one home, you're still in multiple offers with like 2 to 3 on every home, which is putting people back in a predicament, but it'll be great. How are things at the studio? So you got the 360. You got to tell everybody about the 360.
Yep. So a couple weeks ago, we bought the 360 photo booth. So it takes a panoramic view of the people standing on the platform. It also captures your whole event, wedding, party, whatever it's going on behind you. Behind the person it's capturing. So you kind of get a 360 view of everything, which is so cool. So yeah, really just pushing marketing that. Selfie Studio has been very busy with birthday parties, which is weird because this is our second year of business, and our first year, I'm pretty sure January and February, we maybe had one birthday party book. And like this year we have them every weekend, multiple in a weekend. So I don't know if that's that our marketing strategy has definitely changed. I don't know if that's what's working. I don't know if people are kind of finally grasping the concept of what a selfie studio is. We are having groups come in like on Saturday. I'm so excited. We have this woman coming in. She's bringing in a group of friends for one of her friends' 40th birthday party,
Which is so
and
cool.
they're coming in at 11 a.m. And so I think I mentioned this before, but in case I didn't, we're in an old bank. So this building behind me is a really old bank. And part of our rental is the original bank vault. So one wall is lined with safety deposit boxes and keys hanging out and stuff. And so that's kind of like our quote unquote party room. It's pretty small, but it works. And so we're setting up the tables in there so that they can have like mimosas and hang out for 30 minutes before they come and do their pictures. And I'm really excited. Like those are always the group that half of them come in and they're like, oh, this is not for me. I don't do selfies, or I hate taking pictures or whatever. And then by the end of it, they're like 6 of them are piled up in the bathtub ball pit and they're laughing so hard they're snorting, and they leave just saying how great it was. And so I'm pretty excited for that. But yeah, it's been busy with parties. Not a ton of walk-ins because when it's crappy weather, people don't really do the walk-ins as much, but lots of birthday parties and hopefully booking out that 360. So
I feel
chugging
like
along.
as far as like our podcast goes, we are like the prime example of what we're trying to get across here. Like
Yeah.
one of us is going up and doing great. The other one is like, I'm down here, but I promise I'm trying. I'm like the little engine that could. I'm not going to stop.
Well, in fairness, it kind of felt like when we met, it was the opposite. When we met, I was deciding whether or not I was going to close. Like that's where I was. And now it's like not even a year later, not even like half a year later, I don't know, 6 months later. And it went from, am I gonna keep the doors open, or and now it's more like, okay, what's the next step, you know?
Right. Like expansion.
And I felt like you've had so much happen, so that's why you are where you are right now, but you're going to be right back up, and you're like, your industry, you'll be right back up in like a week, whereas mine, I got to work at it for years. So, you know.
But I mean, I feel like it's kind of a common theme. Like even in the last few weeks with Adam and I with First Class Platinum, like we've looked at it and we've been like, should we even continue down this trail, or like should we just throw our hands up, say we tried, and that be that. But I feel like that's so common in
It is.
entrepreneurship that everybody gets in that spot where it's, oh my God, we're broke. What are we doing with our lives?
Sure.
Like, this is a horrible plan. Let's go back to a 9 to 5. And then it's like, that's when it turns around.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
joke with Adam, I'm like, we're living on a prayer right now, you know? And he's like, yeah, it works for Bon Jovi. So, I mean, if Bon Jovi can do it, I think we can too. Okay.
Well, hey, that's one compass, right? Like your grounding through Bon Jovi. Okay. So I had this idea, since we're doing our first episode of just us, since the very first episode where we were trying to get it all figured out. I had this idea that we could go through each episode,
Okay.
not in detail, but I thought what we do is I'd look at the episode, I'm going to say who our guest was, what their business was, and maybe if we could both just say like a couple things about it. So something that we found surprising, or what we loved about it, or, anything like that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Let's see if we get through. I don't know if we're going to get through them all and keep it in a short amount of time, but okay. So that episode 1 was us. Obviously, we were brilliant. We don't need to talk about that. No, I'm just
Yeah.
sorry. Just kidding.
No critiques. It was amazing.
No
We did
critiques. We
fabulous.
sounded so good. I mean, we did kind of sound like we were underwater, and the editing is very minimal. And I say a lot, and you say like a lot. So everybody who has stuck with us and didn't quit listening after episode 1, thank you. We are improving. Okay. Episode 2. Okay, so episode 2 was Brian with the truck mounted digital billboard. And I have to say, so this one, I loved that we started with him. Like, he's just such a good personality. He was, it's great energy from the beginning, and his side story was so good.
That's what I was going to say. His story was great.
Mm-hmm.
And at the timing that we had him, the fact that his business literally saved a life, like that was huge. I was like, I don't think anybody else that we've interviewed could say I saved a life. I
Well,
mean, I'm sure they could
maybe,
say I saved
yeah.
a life, but I mean, not like known across the world on the news, I saved a life.
Yeah, we don't really do that with selfies, but I mean, go him. Uh, and also, do you remember how when we asked him the question of where do you see this business going long term? And he like
Outer space.
straight faced said, out of this
Like,
world.
no doubt about it. I'm going to outer space.
There is going to be billboards from outer space. And I just, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be him.
I do have faith in him.
I do too. Okay. Next up was episode 3. And episode 3 was Darwin, who was the judge that you and I both got to know whenever we filmed the blocks, and he is the owner of X agency, the marketing agency.
I think from Darwin's the most, I mean, I took a lot away from Darwin's.
Me too.
Probably because going in, I did not have the highest of expectations because of how the blocks went. So for those obviously that weren't on the blocks that listened to us, the judging from Darwin was a little different. than the judging from the rest of the judges. So Darwin, I wasn't expecting a whole lot from, but then I was really taken back by his story as well in regards to, first of all, the fact that he Googled how to get rich
Yeah.
because that was his goal, but not because he wanted to be rich, but because he wanted to attract the ladies. That was his main goal in life, was to be rich and attract the ladies. So he didn't even get into this industry because he had any drive for it at all. He got into it because he wanted the money. And then the fact that he blatantly said, I basically scammed people the first
Mhm.
3 years, that kind of threw me for a loop. But
How
now
about
he's
that his next thing is that he bought the rights to a
a
breed of
dog.
dog.
I didn't even know
What?
that you could buy the rights to a breed of a dog until talking to Darwin.
Who knew?
I mean, it's genius. But he is, I will say, after that interview, I did realize how smart
Mhm.
Darwin actually was. Like, he knows his stuff. He is very, very intelligent, and he's a very good businessman.
Yeah,
I just kind of wish we would have seen that side on the blocks as well. But I mean, as far as like his business, he knows what he's doing. And I mean, I feel fairly confident that's going to be the guy that's retired in like 3 years with like billions in the bank and just doing his thing.
100%. Yeah. Either that or he's going to find some way to make money off of his kid. You
That
know,
too.
like he's going to be the one that does it. Okay. Episode 4, which by the way, episode 4 was November 18th. Why is that? Like, it seems so long ago, but it doesn't. I don't know. It's so crazy. Time flies. Time flies. Okay, episode 4 was Calliope.
Mhm.
And the real story of a branding beauty helping women in business.
So for Calliope, I think that her backstory
Mm-hmm.
was the most interesting to me in regards to where she got started and kind of the journey she took finding herself
Mm-hmm.
to get to where she's at now. Like to take it's agoraphobia, right?
Yes.
When
Mm-hmm.
so to have agoraphobia and to go from that and overcome that
Yeah.
alone is huge. Yet alone to overcome it and become a successful entrepreneur because her branding industry is doing amazing. She's doing great. For those
Right.
that don't follow her, you should. She always has branding advice multiple times a day.
Right. Yeah. I have to say hers was one that when she described her past, it was almost like she was talking about a different person. And I'm sure she would say that. I'm sure she would say, well, I am a different person. But it was because we've only known her, since August.
Right.
And the she we met in August was so far from the things that, I mean, I feel like if you were to go back and watch that episode, I feel like our jaws were on the floor the whole time. We were like, no way, I
Yeah.
mean, that happens a lot for us when we're interviewing people. But in particular with her, just because it was really shocking that was everything she had gone through to get to this point. So
Yeah. How far she's come.
right. Okay, episode 5 is the real story of the neurodiverse teacher with Dr. Kristen Eccleston.
I just love Kristen.
I do too.
I don't think that I
I
could
do
say enough
too.
about Kristen. The passion that she has behind what she does is just so overwhelming to
Uh-huh.
me.
Yeah.
I love what I do, but mine is a business. She loves what she does and it is a business, but she is genuinely helping people every day of their life. And I just think that what she is doing is amazing.
I agree. Also, I know we mentioned this in the show notes. I don't feel like we mentioned it much in her episode, but she has a podcast
Uh-huh.
that if you enjoyed that episode at all, you should definitely go check out her podcast. She has great guests on it, but also like we've had a few people that we've interviewed throughout our time doing this podcast that some have great stories, some are super entertaining, and then we have a handful that have this unique ability to explain things in a way that gives you consistent aha moments. Or, these, I always call them like little, we always say like, oh, what a good little nugget, right? Like that little nugget, that one little thing that they said. And you're like, that's the stuff that should be on my Instagram quote tiles, and she was really good about that. There were things that she said, about being an entrepreneur and being a mother, being an entrepreneur and being a woman, being an entrepreneur, and how all of us have, she thinks all of us have some sort of, a neurodiverse complexity to us, and I think that is so fair. And so she a lot of little things that she said stuck with me, I'll say that.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that like she is extremely intelligent, but was able to bring it down to where it made sense. So sometimes, you'll talk to people that are so smart that you feel so dumb after you talk to them because you're just like, I have no clue what just came out of your mouth. It sounded amazing. But I couldn't Google fast enough to keep up with what you were talking about. But with her, she has an amazing way of articulating what she's saying, but not only that, getting it across to where anyone understands what she's talking about.
I completely agree. I really enjoyed that episode. Really enjoyed recording it. I enjoyed our conversations before and after, and it's a good one. Okay, so this next one is the one that I get the most feedback about our dynamic interviewing this person.
Okay.
So episode 6 is Sam Sneed with Yellow Shark visuals.
Man, I mean, there's just so much you could say about Sam, but I have to say that not about this episode, even though in the episode, yes, Sam is just entertaining as all get out. He kept me entertained the entire time we were filming the vlogs. And his little like one-liner, sarcastic, like snarky things that he says that most people are like, ugh, I find absolutely hilarious. So for me, I think this interview was probably the most entertaining one that we did because I felt like we were laughing the entire time. And for those, like, once we have these videos out, you have to watch. If you don't watch any videos at all, please watch Sam's, because the beginning of the episode, he is trying out the podcast, like the mic and the headphones, he's putting it all on. And he's like, how do I look? And you can tell he's doing split screen. And we're like, you're not even looking at the computer. Like, we can't see you. And he's like, oh. And so then he's like trying to figure out, but he's like, I'm just so excited. But that's Sam. Like, his whole interview, you felt the excitement the entire time because that's just Sam.
Yeah. So the feedback I received from people who consistently listen, they say, and it's not so much that it's more entertaining than other episodes, but the feedback they give is that they laughed listening to the three of us. Like that, or one of a business owner here in town was like, how long have you guys known Sam? Or, how well do you know Sam? It seemed like you guys knew each other really well. And I was like, well, I mean, of course, we have, intense connections with everyone that we spent this week with filming the show, but not him probably the least, honestly. I just think that the three of us have similar senses of humor, and we found it wildly entertaining to do that episode. And other than just the dynamic of the episode, I really, I value how relatable Sam is. So, not that everyone has YouTube channels that skyrocket, but like, I loved that story and the way he told it and the way he talked about his friends, his one paycheck, the way he talked about his friends, the way he talked about, his partner and, getting her things going. And it's just like, he is kind of like that everyday guy or that everybody's fan type guy. So,
everybody's cheerleader.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Okay, episode 7 was the real story of a seasonal cycle restaurateur, which is Dana's episode. Loved Dana's episode, with exception of our technology issues we were experiencing. But I think the episode actually turned out okay. I don't think you picked
Yeah,
up on them as much as what we had trying to record it. But Dana's story is one of those stories that people get up on stages and tell, and it
exactly.
makes you think to yourself, oh my gosh, if she can do, if she can push through, if she can persevere, if she can do all this, then what excuse do I have? Like, well,
Exactly.
I gotta get after it.
Her story is that motivational story
Mhm,
of I had to overcome so much
mhm.
and look where I am now. And I started at the bottom and worked my way up. And the fact that, I mean, she's a genuine person,
Yeah,
like altogether. And I think everything that she's been through in life kind of added to that. But she is just the one that, like, I've worked the bar, I've worked hosting, I've served, I've done this,
yeah,
I've managed the back of the house. And now she literally knows every single role
yeah,
of what she's about to open on her own, which I cannot wait for that to open. I want to be there for opening day. I want to support her every which way I can.
yeah,
I just think that her interview on this podcast, like it's like you said, everything she's had to overcome and to see where she is very much so a if you need a motivational speaker, you probably need to reach out to Dana. Like she that's it. Just have her
yeah.
tell her story. And everybody's like in tears thinking, I can open my own company.
Yeah. And so two things on that. You hit on it 100% is that, she is what some entrepreneurs are, she has what some entrepreneurs are missing, meaning that there's a little bit of a culture and entrepreneurship right now, call it the generation, call it the effects of after COVID. There's a sense of entitlement, right?
Oh
That
yeah.
you can just be like, I can do that better. And you open it up and you try, and quite frankly, you fail because you have no experience in it.
Right.
Or you have this, like, just, I don't have a better way to say it, an entitled view of what it really takes to run the day to day of a business. And what's so cool about her is she is the one that you'll bet on for
Yes.
success,
All day.
because she has done every role. She understands the inner and outer workings of it. There is no mystery to her. It almost feels like there won't even be much of a learning curve for her.
Right.
It's just
It's
kind
like
of
I've been there, I've done that. I can train you on it.
right. And I don't know if you saw this, but so Syndicate Ferndale is her restaurant that will be opening. I think it's still set to open early summer, late spring, early summer.
Yeah, I thought it was May-ish.
May is what I remember. Yeah, I don't know if that date's changed at all. So you guys will have to go follow the page to know for sure. But I did see she posted where she she left her current position to go full on with
Right.
Syndicate. And the responses that she got for how excited, like, they were nothing but encouraging,
Right.
nothing but support. But you showed me the way on this, you mentored me with this, or
And it was people
they,
that were like past employees, like
yes,
haven't worked
yes,
for her in
years
years.
ago,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so that just really speaks to it. That's just really a good testament to who she is as a person, as an employee, and now as an employer. So how exciting. Oh, okay. Episode 8 was our final episode of season 1, and it was Jessie Lee.
Okay, so this one I've got to say, like, I was so excited about when she said she would do the podcast. I was like, oh, and then when we got like I was fangirling very, very hard. And I know to some people that sounds insane because some people don't even know who Jessie Lee is, which if you don't, you need to follow her.
Hmm.
But this woman's content and her motivation, not only for women, I mean, she mainly does push women, but she motivates everyone. She's just the most motivational person I have ever spoken to. Like
No
she,
nonsense motivation though. She's
yeah,
not
like
like,
she's not like sugarcoating it, making you feel better about it. It's this is how it is. This is how you have to do it. If you don't want to do it that way, then accept failure and move on. Like, and I loved it. I loved it. And I was nervous about how that podcast was going to go because kind of up till then, we had interviewed people that we did know and did have a connection with. So she was our first uh let's hope this flows well. And I think that it flowed amazing.
yeah.
I thought that the questions were on point, her answers were on point, and we talked back and forth like we had known each other for years.
Mm-hmm. You know what I remember distinctly from recording that is we were kind of going through a theme a couple episodes leading up to this, and our Nichole and I talk every day aside from this podcast. Shocker, I know. But we were kind of going through this theme of talking about, am I crazy to keep doing this? Am I, the word crazy kept coming up, which I know triggers people. So sorry if there's a better word, but you get into this place of you have these friends that don't understand why you're doing it, or for some people you have a spouse that doesn't understand why you're doing it, or family that doesn't understand why you're pushing or why you're hanging on by that last thread. And why wouldn't you just go work corporate America and have a consistent paycheck and not be so stressed? And what I remember from our episode with her is it was something about being crazy. And then she goes, well, you are crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy. I'm crazy. You got to be crazy to do this. So just get comfortable with it. And it was like, okay. So from that day forward, I never am like, oh my gosh, am I crazy for doing this?
Yeah.
From that day forward, it's like, okay, I'm pretty fucking crazy because
Yeah.
I'm still doing it.
I will say her, and then one of the other ones that's coming up, I'm sure I hope we'll hit on him as well, but that on days where I am just like, I'm going in my room, turning off all the lights and just pretending today didn't happen, that if I go watch content from either one of their pages, that there will be something that will come out that is exactly what I need to hear at that exact moment. That kind of just keeps pushing you. So I feel like with Jessie Lee, what I took the most from was that I need a business coach, and not just any business coach. Like I need a business coach that gets me on that level, not the one that's going to be like, you can do this. Like I need someone that's going to be brutally honest, that understands what I'm actually going through, and not someone that just started a business coach and is like, I'm a business coach, and they've never actually ran a company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's what I took from Jessie Lee, is that everybody that is an entrepreneur needs a business coach, and they need someone that's going to motivate them, and they can't stop learning. And I think
one that's a good
big
fit.
mistake. Right. Like I think that's one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make, is they get comfortable. And the second that they're comfortable is when, I mean, all hell breaks loose. That's usually when it's like, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that. And I feel like what I got from her is you always need to be learning from someone else. If there's ever a mastermind, if there's something you don't know, go learn it. If there's something that you could know better, go do it. And she, to me, was like a very big motivator in investing in yourself. Like a lot of people invest, and you and I have talked about this obviously off the podcast, but a lot of people only invest in something that they can see an immediate ROI. And I think they forget that they are a part of the ROI. So if you're not investing in yourself and you're not learning and growing and staying mentally, capable of running a company, then you're basically failing essentially. But if you invest in yourself, that ROI is like tenfold. So I just think that with hers, that's what I took. A lot of motivation and a lot of, you need to invest in yourself and always keep learning.
Yeah, we really couldn't have picked and thank goodness she said yes, a better person to wrap out our first season of the podcast, which obviously that whole season was just a complete learning curve. We were
Right.
like, how do we edit? How do we publish? How do we what do the show notes need to say? How do we get guests? How do we avoid getting easy guests? Because
Yes.
of course we have a bank of people that we can pull from, but we want to make sure we're giving listeners a variety of industries to hear from. And so she was the perfect ribbon, the perfect bow to tie up the end of that season. And no pressure, but now we got to get really somebody awesome to tie up this okay, let's move on. So first episode of season 2 was the real story of Nicholas Hurd with Niagara Falls Adventures. So funny story, and I can't remember if we talked about this in the podcast or not, but we all met on the blocks. We've talked about that before. But you get there and you have no idea what it's going to be like filming. You have no concept of anything. And you're standing in line to make sure that all your information is right. So when they put the little caption under you, it says your business name and your name correctly and all that good stuff. And so, you're standing in line, and I drove in. I didn't, because it was in Kansas City, so it's only a couple hours away. I didn't fly in. I kind of felt like the people that flew in got on this bus together and had a little bit of a chance to connect and all this stuff. So I just felt really, you know how it is when you first show up somewhere, you like feel a little isolated. And Nichole and Nick, you two were the first 2 people. The 3 of us stood in line waiting to verify our information. The first people that I talked to there, period. And so I'll always remember that about that dynamic. So I'm like, Nichole, Nick, trying to remember everybody's name, anyway.
And Nick was the first one I met when I landed. So we rode in together in the bus with Travis. Travis drove us in.
Yeah.
And Nick was the first one that I met when I landed.
Very cool.
So
another person on this podcast that I think is just super relatable.
Yep. He's a hustler.
He is a hustler. And you know what I was thinking, and we're going to talk about this again later. When I don't know what made me think of this the other day, but I got to thinking of his episode and the Orange Crate episode and somebody else's episode. And you even, how many have gone to side hustle delivery services at different points in their startups for that side income, and so it was just funny because it made me think Uber Eats should really target entrepreneurs that
right. You need drivers.
Yeah.
Uber, you need to hit up the entrepreneur world. Okay.
I'm telling you,
new businesses, I guarantee you that they will drive for you.
Yeah. Anybody who needs a little, because Jessie Lee even talks about it at one point. She says what did she call it? She said the gig economy wasn't there when she started.
Yep.
And I was like, oh,
for that extra $300 a month.
Yes. And I'm like, that's so real. I tried an MLM for a hot minute, and looking back on it, going into people's homes and trying to get them to buy dip was way far harder than the side gigs you can get today of I'm just going to go pick up somebody's groceries for Instacart. It's just funny. You almost don't remember that those things have really only been around for a few years, Well,
I mean, think about it. When we were growing up, we were always told to not get in the car with a stranger and to not pick up strangers. And now it is a $1 billion industry for you to get in the car with a stranger or
take your food from strangers
to pick up. Yeah. Or they're delivering your food to your house. Don't take food from strangers, but I just brought all your groceries to you.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're safe.
So one thing that really sticks out to me about Nick was so a lot of people have a passion for their industry. Okay. That's easy. Not easy, but it's pretty common. Nick has a passion for this thing and built an industry around it. You know what I mean? I am telling you right now that if I ever had to phone a friend on a game show for a question about anything to do with Niagara Falls. That man knows everything there is to know about Niagara Falls. You could not convince me otherwise. Like there are people who, for lack of a better term, are imposters in their industry or in their business or in what they're selling, and they know, just that little bit more than the general public, and that makes them effective in selling what they know. That man knows more about that than I venture to say almost anyone. Like he might as well be a historian for
Right.
Niagara Falls.
Like I don't think there's anything he didn't know about history, present, anything. Like I think he knew it all. But I think the
He
thing
had
I
a
take
chicken
away,
wing recommendation.
yes,
I'm just saying, like, it goes he had all the bases covered. I'm convinced.
I think my biggest takeaway from Nick as a person in general is just his get up and go. And I think it came across in the podcast that if there is an idea, if there's a way to expand upon it, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Like if he can involve it in Niagara, make money off of it, still doing what he loves, but just expand more, he's going to do it. And I believe that he just said he has now opened the other part of it, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we'll have to get him back on to talk about that.
We definitely will. And I'm just going to say it and then we'll move on. Shout out to him for, shouldn't call it bamboozling because it's not, like he didn't scam people, but like him telling people that the money he made off of the tours would help pay for the engagement ring.
Yeah, genius.
Brilliant. If you have not
Genius.
listened to that episode, go listen to it for that exact reason. It would be episode 9. So it's the first one in season 2, on January 19th. And it, like, his story around that was just, I mean, it's the definition of relatability, hustle. Like it's just there. It's a good one. It's a good one. Okay. Next up is episode 10 with Alden Miller with Alchemy Films. So Alden's another one that we get off, we're just giggly with. Like he has a very dry sense of humor, very intelligent sense of humor, and it's just, I don't know, it's the sarcasm for me. I love it so hard. But you know what impressed me the most about Alden's was, and it's one of those things that I'm like, ooh, I should do that. But for my industry, he said that he bit the bullet and did this project where I think it was 40 films in 40 days, or was it 30?
I thought it was 30 and 30.
It might have been 30. I think it's Lent right now, so that's why.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking about in the back of my mind was that was the most impressive thing to me, that he was like, I didn't really want to do this.
Yes.
But I knew that it would help essentially.
And you know what's funny is I have talked about it with several people since recording that episode, that I was like, he had business spin off from that, he tells us, but B, the amount of things you learn from consistently doing the hard thing and pushing out what you've done without having this like extremely long, over edited, like the content is just so pure. And anytime I talk to somebody who is really trying to get into the TikTok space or the live space on Instagram or Facebook, and this is advice I should take myself, is that you should really do like a challenge like this, where just you do it every day for 30 days and just see how much your following grows or how much your business grows. And he did it. And it's a really cool way of looking at it from his industry point of view, but seeing like, how could I apply that to my industry? Nichole, if you did 5 reach outs every day for people, trying to convince them to list their home, which I realize you're working for a builder now, but as an agent, broker or whatever, it would just be interesting to see how measurable, if you were that consistent for 30 days in anything in life.
Right. I mean, like, it's like we have a report card for our agents that we give them out, and it basically tells them that you need to make, you say 5, but it's really supposed to be like 100 and a
day.
Yeah. and you narrow that down
That's why I don't do real estate.
into basically it boils down to you end up getting maybe 3 or 4 actual appointments out of it. Sometimes you get 10 appointments, but then like 3 will actually go with you, kind of thing. But that's how the numbers boil down. And if you know your numbers and you know how it's going to compute, then that's, you need to change your numbers based on that. But yes, the fact that he took that and ran with it and built off of it, like it just shows that his ambition, like I think that he has a lot of ambition.
Yeah.
And you can also tell that he's also the guy behind the camera.
Hmm.
So he doesn't like being the center of attention. He doesn't like all of that. He's very much so, I'm structured. I need this. I need this. And you get that in the interview with Alden, like in regards
Hmm.
to, I knew I had to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And that is huge for an entrepreneur. But then you also have the extroverted entrepreneur that is the complete opposite of Alden.
Right.
Like they want to be involved in everything. And Alden's like, no, like I know what I have to do and I've got to get this done. And then I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and do this. And it's his schedule. Like the schedule that Alden would
Yeah.
give was crazy to me. And the fact that he still did work-life balance and made it was intentional with his work-life balance. I like that as well.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. Episode 11 was Ryan Finch with First Class Real Estate.
Mhm.
This one was good for a couple reasons for me. I was a little nervous for a few reasons. One, I was a little nervous for you because it was like, I think this was really the first one where you knew the person, I didn't.
Yep.
Also, obviously, the relationship that you two have business wise. And then what was cool about this one was getting this was our first really look at the option of franchising and what benefits, perks, letdowns, what works, what doesn't. And it was a really cool insight into that field. And what was the most memorable part of this interview for me, aside from me having to ask what something was because y'all were throwing around real estate jargon like nobody's business, and I'm like, hello, I don't know what those acronyms are, was his answer. And I know he felt like it was a bad answer because he took it from something else, but his answer to the question we ask everybody, which is the one piece of advice you have for someone who's just getting started or a new entrepreneur. And he and I went and found the podcast after, and it was an interview on, I believe it was an Ed Milet podcast, but he was interviewing someone else, so it was somebody else's answer, and I forget the name of the person. But the advice was to go back, where if you're in a slump, go back where you quit.
Right.
And I feel like every conversation I had with a business owner for the next week after that is I was like, oh, go back where you quit. I just felt like it was a really interesting perspective of answer on that question. And it really made me think. And it goes back to that whole thing of, what you need to do.
Right.
And at some point you quit doing it. So, you need to post to social media every day, if not multiple times a day, pending the platform. That's what you need to do. There's no doubt. There's no like, oh, should I or should I? Yes, you should. But it's the daunting task, or it's the one thing you don't do, or, you should be, serving an email list, and it's the one thing you don't do, whatever that is. But when you're struggling, when sales are down, when your bills need to be paid and you're like, man, woe is me, really, you just need to go back to where you quit and do the things you
Exactly.
should be doing from the beginning. So I really enjoyed that piece of that podcast.
Yeah, for me, I mean, like you said, I knew Ryan, and I mean, obviously, I still know Ryan. He is very, very, very motivational to me personally in
Mm-hmm.
my industry. Not just because he is the franchise CEO and co-founder of First Class Real Estate, but because when he talks, he has a way, and sometimes it can bother me, but he has a way of turning what you're asking him into a question that
Mhm.
makes you then think about, okay, now I know the answer. Like, I'm like, I just want to answer. Just give me an answer, Ryan. But he's not that guy. He's going to be the guy that is going to motivate you to the point where you get it on your own. If you don't get it on your own, he's going to give you a few hints in the questions that he's asking. But he's just, to me, he's always been extremely motivational and extremely knowledgeable on all things real estate. So for me, the Ryan interview I felt was great. But yeah, I agree. I think the best part of it was his answer of go back to where you quit. Because I think a lot of people don't do that.
Right.
They just quit, and they
Right.
quit too soon. And but then they look back and they're like, what could I have done differently? And it's something as simple as posting on social media.
Right.
And they're like, are the ones that have to do videos for the industry, which I believe every industry at this point in 2023 should have to do videos. I mean, I think videos are where it's at. People want to see like actual stuff without having to leave their house.
Yeah.
So, but there's the people that are like, I don't do video. I don't want to be on video. I look stupid on video. Well, get over yourself. Like, you don't.
Buy a ring
It's
light.
all yourself. Huh?
I said, buy a ring light. It helps.
Buy a ring light. There you go. Go to the Selfie Studio and do it with Andrea. She'll help you out.
She does.
But I just think that was a big takeaway for me is go back to where you quit, because there's
Yeah.
always one spot that if you go back and you look, they're like, okay, I quit doing this. If I was doing great until that point. And again, I think that kind of goes back to being comfortable. You think everything's fine, so you start slacking on stuff that you don't see as a big deal, but those small things add up. So yeah, I agree. I think the going back to where you quit was great.
Yeah. Okay, we got three more and we need to get through them because we're
Getting winded.
yeah, and we don't want to lose listeners because the last three were good ones too. So okay, so episode 12 was Heather Chandler with Orange Crate, New Mexico. And so on this one, I really felt like I thought you were going to talk, so I was waiting. um, I enjoyed our chat with Heather before, during, after, all of the above. This one is one where I will say I'm anxious to see where it goes.
Yes.
I feel like she has a lot of drive in her, and I feel like she is literally just getting started. And so I value that we made an honest attempt to interview people on this podcast that are in different
Areas.
areas, right? Just getting started, middle of the road, beyond successful, had a couple failed businesses, but are killing it at another one. We really tried to mix it up. And what I really appreciated about hers was that she is definitely in a place where she is getting the systems into place. She's trying to get to a place where she can back off and not be the only one that runs it. And I think that is an honest, view of what a lot of us entrepreneurs face in the beginning of, okay, I can't be the only one that does this. I have to get help. I have to back off. And especially in her industry, which is the delivery industry, you can't do it all. So
Right.
I thought that was a cool view, especially coming right off of Ryan's podcast, where he is, he's at a level a lot of us are trying to attain, and she is where a lot of us are, I guess.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I 100% agree with that. That was my thing with her, is she's at the point of entrepreneurship where she's been in control and has controlled everything since the beginning. And she's now at that point where she's realizing I've got to start delegating stuff to other people. And I think every entrepreneur hits that point at some point on their journey, because I mean, let's be real, most entrepreneurs do it in the beginning to save money. Like, it's just, it's not feasible to hire all these people to do all these roles. So you wear every cap in your industry. And then but that's also the fastest way to burn yourself out. So I thought it was really cool that that's where she's at now. Like she's been the one that's been in control of everything, and she's finally slowly letting stuff go and delegating stuff out.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where that one goes and how, I mean, she's been rapidly growing, so it'll be really interesting to see as she grows to a more regional level,
Right.
what her operations look like. She'll be another good one to have back
Yeah, like
on.
she's got her niche down. So I'm
Yeah.
very interested to see what happens when she grows much further out of that niche.
Yeah. Okay, episode 13. Yeah, 13. Is Danny Z's woodworking.
Let's just say, I mean, I love Danny Z.
I love Danny. He's good. He's good people.
He is good people. And for me, I thought that his episode was he's just so genuine. Like what he wants to do and what his goal is for the business is just so genuine. And it shows through in everything that he says. That he's not going out there trying to just sell like crap furniture to people to turn a buck. Like he genuinely wants these people to have nice things, nice pieces that they can put in their home or that they can gift that aren't just going to fall apart in a
Right.
week. Like he's just a genuine, to me, just a very genuine person.
Yeah, and he is the type of entrepreneur you see less and less of today. A lot of times you see, what can I produce in mass quantity that will get me the
Yes.
most amount of money and will get me this far and this far. And he is very much, I don't want to produce in mass quantity. I want to produce legacy pieces that
Yep.
can be passed on from generation to generation. And, you know, he wants to keep that desire for quality furniture alive.
Yes.
Versus, you know, going to some of these big box stores where you can get pieces that'll get you through a few years of a toddler if you're lucky.
Right. Yeah. So that was my takeaway from Danny is
Yeah,
that
so his
he just what he's doing means something to him. It's not just to make millions and millions of dollars. It means something to him.
And how often do you hear people say, find something you love and love to do and make a business out of it? You know, so when he was talking about how he used to do woodworking a lot as a young, you know, as a child
Right.
with his grandfather, and then he kind of quit while he was in the military and went that route for a little while, and then he came back to it because it was something he always enjoyed. You know, that's just really, really speaks to that whole creating something from something you love, right?
Yeah. Like find something you love doing, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah,
Like that saying, he is very true to that.
absolutely. Okay, so this brings us to our last episode that we have recorded, which is episode 14.
I have
And
to say to date, it's my favorite.
I think so too. Which I feel like I say that every episode. Honestly, like every episode we finish, I'm like, ooh, I don't know, that might be my favorite. But I loved this episode it's Carlton Washington with Forever Young. I loved this episode so hard. And I remember, you know, we record on Zoom, so there is video. Eventually someday we're gonna get all these videos out so you can watch our facial expressions, and I have to prepare myself for that with a lot of vodka. But I distinctly remember there were so many times he was talking, and he is talking to our audience, right? But I'm like, oh my gosh, he's talking to me.
Yeah, it was like he was in my head. And I
So
was
many
like,
times I was
out.
like, oh, he is talking to Nichole. She needs to hear this today. It was like when you go to church and you swear that
They're looking directly at you.
that they know you need to hear this one. He said a lot of those little nuggets, a lot of those little pieces of like, oh, I needed to hear that today. His is an episode that I have, and there's a couple, but his is an episode I have gone back and listened to again.
Yes. I've listened to it multiple times.
And I know you've implied this, but he is someone that if you are in a rut, go look at his content.
Yep.
go get on his Instagram and just watch 5 minutes, set a timer so you don't waste your life away, but watch 5 minutes of his reels. And I guarantee you he's going to say something that you're going to be like, oh, I needed to hear. That's what I needed to hear today, you know?
Yeah, for me, I feel like he was so knowledgeable on so many different
Mm-hmm.
realms of entrepreneurship because he's done the the initial business startup when he was in college, and he gave it up so he could finish his college degree because he thought that's what his parents wanted him to do. And then he thought he was going to make all this money coming out of college, which I feel like that was also a theme with Jesse Lee, that all these people think going to college for 4 years means that I'm going to come straight out making all this money and all
Yeah.
that. And that's not necessarily true. And so he's talking about how miserable he was doing that. So then he started another business, and then he made a bet with his wife, and his wife was right. And so he had to give up that business. And then he gets down here, and he doesn't go to Florida with any intention of
Mm-mm.
starting a business. He wants to be a bodybuilder or do a bodybuilder competition. And then out of that comes this, what, there's like 80 something, is that what he said, franchises now?
83 or 87. Yeah, it's in the 80s.
A lot of
A
franchises
lot.
come out of, I met with a trainer
Yeah.
to so that I could do a bodybuilder competition because that sounded fun.
Uh-huh.
And now they're extremely successful. And not only that, him going into the business consultant stage, like that's what he's looking to do. He is a coach that I would pay over and over and over again
Absolutely.
to coach me on what I need to do. Because I just feel like he's also one of those, like, no bullshit. This is it. Either do it or don't. But if you don't do it, don't come back to me and say, oh, it's not working because you didn't do what I told you to do.
He
I
is
just,
definitely,
that,
yeah, he's definitely the guy that does the work,
yep,
practices what he preaches. So if he told you to do it, it's because he's been there and he knows that you need to do it.
yep,
I loved this episode so hard, and I really hope that people go and give it a listen. It was a good one.
definitely.
Yeah.
And then next week we have, I mean, since we're wrapping this one up, just so you know what's coming up, we have a single mom who's gone out and written a book. We have a boutique owner who does prom dresses, formal dresses, all sorts of formal attire. We have a gym owner coming soon. I mean, we have a lot coming in this season that I think that based on where they are and the stages they are, that everybody's still going to be able to get so much information. And like Andrea said, take the nuggets away in regards to, oh, okay, that's where I am. That makes sense. They did this. I need to do that. Like, and that's the whole point of our podcast. So I'm hoping that everybody's getting as much out of it as we are. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm getting a lot
absolutely.
of our podcast.
Me too. Like selfishly, I'm like, oh, this is such a good professional development for me.
It really,
So yeah, if you've listened along the way, if this episode inspired you to go listen to another one, if you have any sort of feedback, let us know. If you have anybody that you were like, I'd really love to hear the story behind this, let us know that too. Nichole is really good at reaching out to people that we think will never say yes. And they either say yes or they tell us yes if you're going to pay me $10,000 to sit down with you for 30 minutes. And so either way, we'll try.
yeah,
But
we
yeah,
won't pay you $10,000. That's not.
we won't pay you 10 cents. We don't have it. So prepare yourself accordingly that you are
Yeah,
that
you're doing this out of the kindness of your heart
you know
and to
what?
help
You know
future
what you should do?
entrepreneurs.
You know what we should do? We should tell them that you could write off your hourly rate as a donation on your taxes to
Oh,
come and film
yes.
for 1 hour. That's, you know what? Let's add that to the email. So,
We'll just add that in like with an asterisk.
disclaimer, you can write this off
We are not
for
going to
your
pay you.
hourly rate.
But
We will send you the documentation to say thank you for donating your time. Anyway,
and like
um,
she said, if you know anyone or if you yourself
yeah,
have an amazing story that you just want to tell, I mean, that's kind of what we're here for.
yeah,
When we met on 70 businesses telling their story, and all it did was kind of just feed like our energy and our fire to like go home and do more and do more and do more. And that's the whole goal of this, is that we want everyone to hear everybody's story, to kind of grab those things out of it that they need. And if you have that story, even if you think you're a horrible speaker, it's cool. We have editing. Like that's, that's what we're here for. But if your story comes out, like that's what we want. We want everybody to hear everybody's story, because everybody's story is so different and adds value in ways you don't even realize.
And I know she said if you have an amazing story to tell, honestly, it doesn't have to be amazing. It really doesn't. I don't have an amazing story. I don't feel like it's all that great. I think
Andrea, you're
honest,
amazing.
what?
You're amazing.
I
I'm
didn't say
gonna
I wasn't amazing. I just said my story
positivity.
may not be amazing. No, I think that what our purpose behind this podcast is to provide a platform of support for people who are having that bad day in entrepreneurship. That day where you're like, ooh, should I close? Or should I go take out a loan and go all in? Whatever. So this is really meant to be that support of, whatever direction you need to go. Not that you're going to get the answer listening, but sometimes it just feels good to know you're not alone.
Right.
And so we really want to maintain that, and we hope you guys are enjoying it as much as we're enjoying doing it. And I can't wait for like 2 years from now, whenever this is like a top rated podcast and you get to go back and listen to this episode, and we'll
And
sound
hear
like,
how janky our first season
yeah,
sounded.
we'll sound like such babies with bad editing, and we'll get to laugh about it. And yeah, anyway, so okay, well, we'll catch you next week with a
If you
guest.
like what you hear,
You
make
don't have to listen.
sure to subscribe and leave a review. And we will see y'all, or I guess y'all will hear us next week. Have a great
Sounds good.
week.
Bye.
Oh.